It's incredible to think that a year and 3 months, year and 4 months after the wildfires in Southern California on January 7th, 2025, that absolutely decimated the Pacific's Palisades and Altadena, that we're still talking about it in terms of recovery, because the recovery process has been so slow. And in the wake of the devastation that happened in January, the architectural community in Southern California is facing a reckoning. The conversation I had at a recent panel I hosted at Ganal Lumber in Torrance, California, made one thing clear. The old metrics of quote-unquote durability are no longer enough. The industry is moving toward a philosophy of resilience. It has no choice. For Anthony Poon of Poon Design and Ben Ballantyne of Ballantyne Architects, the challenge lies in balancing this need for hardened architecture structures, rather, with the fundamental human desire for beauty and light. As Poon noted, a building could be made entirely fireproof, but if it ends up looking like a bomb shelter, the architecture has failed in its purpose. The goal is now kinetic and resourceful design, structures that don't just survive a disaster, but facilitate the recovery of the families within them. The panel also addressed the friction between rebuilding and thoughtful design, with developers racing to fill the housing shortage by plopping down identical units. Luis Murillo of LMG Architecture raised concerns about the loss of neighborhood character. Meanwhile, Jay Williams of James Hardie and TimberTech highlighted how material science, blending the aesthetics of natural wood with the fire-rated performance of advanced PVC and fiber cement, is bridging the gap between safety and style. Ultimately, the consensus was that technology, from AI-driven detailing to digital twin visualizations, is shrinking the production time, but cannot replace the human element. The architect's role is evolving from a pure designer into a civic leader and a marriage counselor, if you will, navigating a world where clients are armed with TikTok-sourced ideas and a desperate need for a sense of home in an increasingly volatile environment. Some of the concepts you're going to hear in this conversation are resilience versus strength, the bomb shelter dilemma, right? That struggle to meet strict fire and safety codes, like hardening the building envelope without sacrificing natural light and aesthetic appeal. Material science innovation, architectural accountability, the AI influence, and rebuilding ethics, as in that tension between the speed of rebuilding in burn areas and the opportunity to rethink density and multifamily housing. This was an absolutely incredible conversation. I hope you enjoy it, and you're going to hear all of it right after this. At the highest level of design, the absolute best specifying designers, architects, landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That's one of the reasons why I am so proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on three priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you about my board flipping stories from my own wood decks. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease and ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious of the environment now, and they want the same of their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood, color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior, as it has been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled material. Their advanced PVC, vintage, and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech, or you can check them out directly, timbertech.com.
Hello, my name is Jay Williams. I'm the Senior Director of the Architect and Designer segment for James Hardie. I'm actually based out of Austin, Texas, but I lead the way that the company interacts and focuses in on how we educate, how we support the architect and designer segment. While I do represent James Hardie, inside of James Hardie we have multiple brands. James Hardie has actually recently acquired the AZEK company about 7 months ago. So as part of that, James Hardie actually has the portfolio that was part of the AZEK company, being TimberTech, AZEK Exteriors, Intex Millwork, Structure, and also Return Polymers. So talking about the A&D side of the business, I'm here to be able to talk about all sides of the portfolio for them. So happy to be here today.
My name is Barrett. I am the general manager of the Ganal Lumber Torrance location. Been with the company a long time now, worked a lot of different jobs, and we sell a lot of James Hardie.
Excellent.
And great partners of ours. We sell lots of different products in the Southern California market, focusing on the professional builder. And we got multiple locations, and the company's been around for a very long time, 140 plus years now, and 142. And thriving. We love Southern California, and things are going very well for us.
Hello everyone, my name is Luis Murillo, principal and lead designer at LMD Architecture Studio. We specialize in high-end custom residential work, have been doing it for many years. Moved from my country, Colombia, in 1997, and I've been practicing since then for almost 30 years in Southern California. First at a large architectural design company, and then since 2010 at LMD Architecture Studio. We do projects from Palos Verdes up to the Palisades. We have also a couple of things going on in Half Moon Bay. But I'm very excited about sharing this table with some esteemed colleagues and some. I do specify James Hardie for some of our projects, and I'm very excited about being part of this conversation.
Hi everyone, glad to be here. I'm Anthony Poon with Poon Design. We're a Los Angeles firm. We practice nationally and internationally. Our focus is quite diverse. We do housing, education work, religious clients, as well as commercial and hospitality. We have two statements to our work. One is that design is storytelling, and the other is a belief that good design belongs to everyone. Whether it's a museum, performing arts center, or design of a nonprofit client, a logo for a website or a bench, we believe everyone deserves good design and good architectural services.
My name is Ben Ballantyne, principal of Ballantyne Architects, Southern California-based firm. Very excited to be here next to my friend Anthony. We specialize in high-end single-family homes primarily. I would say that most of the work that we do is extremely boutique and custom. Our approach is individualized, focus on each client. All of our homes are incredibly unique as a result of our clients' personalities being quite unique.
I'm going to throw a concept out there, and please feel free to correct me restate it, but I just want to start here. I feel like the idea and the idea about strengthening the enclosure, strengthening the envelope of an architectural structure, be it residential, hospitality, commercial, healthcare, the ideas about it haven't necessarily changed much, but the perceptions have, because just in 5 short years, we've gone from something that was globally impactful, like a pandemic, to something that is regionally impactful in the fires that took place January of 2025, which made everyone start thinking more and more about the changing nature of architecture. How did that, and how have those changes and how have those thoughts on maybe the consumer end, on the client end, changed and affected the way that you work?
The conversation with our clients early in the process hasn't changed much in terms of clients approach us and then they throw in words like durability, that requires low maintenance, that is beautiful, and a lot of times they throw in the word also is cost effective. So yeah, we've been talking about structural integrity of buildings for a long time, and but then since the fires, that structural integrity has also translated to the envelope of the building. The buildings not only have to be fire resistant on their structure, but now the exterior materials also have to comply with certain regulations. I think something that before people would think about, okay, the fires happen in this part of the town, right? But I find clients in other parts of the city, specifically Los Angeles, that because of that now are thinking, well, yes, I live in Manhattan Beach, and chances of that happening are very slim. But what can I do to my building that helps in case there was a fire in the area? So yes, it somehow it affected other communities within the city. Just got people thinking about that.
Well, Josh, you mentioned strengthening of the building. That's only one small part of the exercise. I think the conversation is about resilience. That's really more the term we're talking about. There's really no way you can strengthen the building to survive the many disasters that may come. It's more important to think about how a building recovers, how a family in a house recovers from some kind of disaster, be it a fire, a hurricane, these winds, earthquake. If you submit to the AIA awards, there is a category now that, not just a category, but a requirement where you have to explain how your building will survive these disasters. How does it support the community after something cataclysmic has happened? So it isn't just about being stronger. That is one thing. It's about resilience, being flexible, being resourceful, and how you can rebuild what you might have just lost. Mm-hmm. The other thing I was just thinking about, when you mentioned in the last few years, of course the fires is what's on everyone's mind, and we talk about that often as a group. But there's other things to be resilient about and strengthen against. Being that we design a lot of schools, we have to be conscious about designing for school shootings. It's one of the worst conversations to have when you're programming your project and a teacher is talking about where the students hide. Will this amount of glass, which we all love because of the natural light and the indoor-outdoor connection, is that going to be an issue when a school shooter, which is probably in our state inevitable, at some point something like that could happen? Those are the topics of strengthening that we need to add to the conversation, besides the obvious one, which is the fires, which has affected so many people.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's you're dealing with the different input, but you still need to kind of balance the rest of the architecture. You can't just focus on just that, but you also have to balance the existing inputs of the students' experience and the usability of the spaces for their purposes. I think that we think of this idea of resiliency and kind of break it down into two different components. I think that there's a building science aspect to it, of how are we assembling our buildings, and I think that's something that that is important. But also in our material specifications, finding materials that are going to have durability, not just in terms of ability to withstand their environment, but also something that's going to be timeless. So we're dealing with a lot of different elements when we're making our specifications, and recently, obviously, with fires is a big one, but there's a lot that goes into it. It's not as simple as, okay, we're gonna design for one specific problem. I think as architects, we have to design for multiple inputs, and that, I think, is when you do that right, that's when it shows.
Interesting. Sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to add, but you bring up a good point, and Joshua had mentioned previously, what is great architecture. If we're just going to design to the needs of strength, you're going to have a house that is a bomb shelter.
Exactly.
Right? and we can tell our client, look, it's fireproof, it's resilient, it's all these things. Or you're going to have a school that is all concrete, metal bars and gates, and no windows. So
exactly.
It is this kind of this balance that we have to play. It's not just form follows function, because if the function is strength and security, what kind of form are you ending up with? And is that really something that we want to say that we're the authors of?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think further to that, I think that oftentimes you are given a program that has very specific requirements. It needs to meet this, that. But I think that as I'm sure that all of us up here probably have our own set of rules that are our own as the designer, as the architect's inputs into those projects as well. So all of that hopefully comes together in a balanced way without needing to ignore any important elements.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because have you seen the images and the stories about Tom Brady's new Florida bomb shelter home, the one that it's being described as a parking garage. And I don't want to go off topic, but I think part of that has to do with the fact that we don't have any real architecture critics in America anymore. AD, which was once the Architectural Journal of Record, doesn't really cover architecture like that anymore, and I don't think that there is any real critique of architecture. But what's interesting, and I want your take on this, is there's also an opportunity in Southern California that has not existed for decades. And that is that as an architect, if you wanted to go build something new within the Los Angeles metro area, you had to find an infill project, or you had to find something that was going to be demolished to build something new. How there are still dingbats in this city is just staggering to me. How any still exist?
But it's great that it still exists.
Is it?
It's such a legacy of Los Angeles. The period, the style, think about architecture, something that is so unique and so cool to the architectural culture that we have.
Okay, great point. But at a time when the dingbats were notorious for crumbling in earthquakes, they were not well built. It's an interesting idea, just like the Googies, but it was not a well built structure. My point is, and by the way, I'm going to put a pin in that because I love my debates with you, and I'm definitely coming back to that. But I feel that there is an opportunity for architects now to do something as significant as maybe the last time this happened was when the GIs came home from World War II. So now we've got architecture where there's opportunity, and now we're looking to other partners to help build more. And thank you for the correction, because it's more resilient. How has product specification changed for you? What have you seen at Ganal that has maybe changed in the order of specification to that point of being more sustainable, more resilient for new build?
We haven't seen a whole lot of change. If we're talking like since the fires, with the ignition resistant and so forth, we're not seeing a whole lot of change. We are seeing some things that are happening out there that we're not involved with 3D printing. You'll see some guys experimenting out there. Or
are you talking concrete 3D printing?
Yeah, and they're pre-manufacturing. There's a site out there right now where the guy's got a robot and so forth, and it's gonna help build. And then he's asking for lots of donations and so forth too. So, and then we saw something just this last week with some foam walls and more and more steel studs. Now, it's not a lot of quantity, but people are experimenting, and property owners are obviously paying for it. So they're sold on something. I can't really figure out what it is they're sold on, but I'm coming from a biased opinion about these products that we don't do or don't do well today. But as far as other specifications coming from manufacturers and so forth, I'm not seeing a whole lot of change for fire resistance or what you were saying, strength building. I do think of Hardie frames and Simpson Strongwall, and like, holy cow, these houses are just filled with steel connectors and the expense that goes along with that on the strength side.
Are you changing the way you specify?
Well, yes. We touched on durability early on, and that's something that has been a recurring conversation with all of our clients. They all love beautiful buildings, they love luxury items, but they also always worry about durability. We do a lot of homes along the coast, and even if they love wood and natural materials, they're always saying, okay, how do we build this in a way that I don't have to do maintenance every year or anything that is south facing or west facing. So that's where we see that shift to, okay, so let's look at composite materials. And the change or the evolution I've seen is on the range of finishes, the availability of different colors, something that looks more natural, that may be more appealing to clients. Now, clients want durable, beautiful, and cost effective. And those three things not always go well together. You were talking about attachments and hardware. Well, when we're trying to specify a cladding for a building that may be durable, virtually zero maintenance, we are also having to educate our clients in that, okay, well, that means we need to add this layer of hardware so that you can attach all those panels to your building. So I think the challenge for the industry is to see how all these systems that are so durable and so high resistive can be made more affordable to clients, because that's where some clients draw the line. Yes, that is beautiful, but they rather go with a material that is easier to install, where they don't have to spend as much money on installation or hardware.
Absolutely. Well, I think that there's so much. When you look at materials, there's always kind of give and take based upon what you can have. And Josh and I were talking about this the other day as well. As when you look at the world of like material science, right? Like I'm going to pick TimberTech as the example of that, where we are investing millions of dollars into the R&D of how do you give real wood looks, right? So the timber portion of TimberTech, and then technology being the material science portion of it. And how do you blend those two things together? And certainly with what we've at least seen on, definitely in Southern California and just California in general, so much awareness around fire resiliency that try to make it more accessible to people. Because previously that was something that you could only get from our premium tier line. But then looking at something where, okay, now we have entry-level advanced PVC products that can make it more accessible to many people to then get your Class A flame spreads and that type of thing. But we're always striving to make sure that, one, from the durability and the maintenance aspect of what happens on the exterior of the home, which is certainly one of the harshest areas of the home, is that it's able to be built and last for 50 years or more. So it's something that we really hyper focus on, and I think that's actually one of the nice things with looking at what's happened with James Hardie as a brand and the evolution over the last 6-7 months of really being a portfolio solution that can not just your siding, but then how do you take fiber cement siding and match that with PVC trims and moldings to then decking and that type of thing. So then you have multiple aspects where you're able to deliver what you guys are essentially looking for resiliency and strength.
I think an important conversation with our clients, you mentioned costs, is in specifications we have to talk about investment and value, in the sense that if we're designing, say, a hospitality space, a hotel lobby, and you could put affordably tile flooring, or you can look at something that's 4 or 5 times more expensive, like terrazzo. But you can also point out tile flooring is not going to last as long. 10 years later, it's going to chip, you're going to regrout, you're going to replace. Terrazzo being polished every once in a while can last you 50 years, 100 years. We've toured clients through projects that have had terrazzo floors that have been around for 100 years, and it still looks great. Mm-hmm. But I want to get back just to the basic question: has our responsibility in specifying changed? And I'm curious from the other architects if it has, in the sense that for us, we are now more involved in specifications than ever before, primarily driven by the contractors and the liability, in the sense that contractors, I felt, used to be collaborative partners with us and also experts, and together we would build buildings. Now it seems the trend is the contractors want to build per the plan, and if it's not in the drawings, they want more information. Now, it doesn't sound that complicated in the sense that we're responsible for design. Legally, they're responsible for means and methods. But we're now getting RFIs asking, we see that your drawing says a 2x4 metal stud wall. We want you to specify the gauge of the metal. We've got RFIs to approve the wall gypsum board and its brand and a specification, whereas before we would say it's drywall. Everyone knows how to build drywall, but that's not the case anymore. So our specification level is getting more and more litigious and more involved.
Mm-hmm. You are listening to Building the Next Epoch: Resilience, Reciprocity, and the Future of the Building Envelope. And it was recorded live from Ganal Lumber in Torrance, California. We'll be right back. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've heard me say this, that the most important word in the design industry is service. Product is important, price is important, selection is important, but stellar service is the premier idea that can make all the difference in the success of a project, any project. How design professionals like you demand great service and your favorite brands in one place with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commission sales professionals. It's really important. It means that their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales, Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that with over 60 years of experience in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. Now, you have the Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. Earn 3% in Best Buy gift cards, e-gift cards, or 2.5% in rewards checks for every qualified and delivered sale. In addition, to special trade pricing, exclusive offers, access to exclusive special events, and so much more than I could possibly tell you about here. And the cherry on top is access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands and the stellar service, again, from a company that has been serving the industry for over 60 years. Terms and conditions apply to the Pro Rewards program and builder trade incentives. So visit a Pacific sales expert at a showroom today for full details and to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. The design industry is in the midst of a generational and fundamental change. If you're in the biz, you feel it. I know you do. We all do. Just about every aspect of the industry is growing, changing, and turning into something entirely different due to a number of factors that, not to go into here, but between tariffs and supply chain and political influence, just clients have changed. Pricing has changed. Everything about the industry has changed, except for one thing: the need for strong design and architecture communities. And that's what led to the creation of Shelter Republic, an online community exclusively for the design and architecture communities, a place to engage with other like-minded creatives outside of the prying eyes of clients and the media. Wouldn't you like to belong to a nurturing community where you can have those real, challenging, authentic conversations, watch exclusive design-focused content, take free courses to level up your design business, hear from experts in the industry, guiding you and helping you move ever forward? And it's free to join. No catch, but it's invitation only. This is not like maybe some other programs you've heard of before where you pay a fee, a sizable fee, and go through a quasi-vetting process only to get there and realize that you're kind of just paying for an ad. That is not what this is. If you're a designer or an architect, you qualify. If you want in, email convobydesign@outlook.com and type Shelter Republic in the subject line. That's it. An invitation to join will follow. Call this the anti-social media platform where you can meet, engage, and share ideas in a safe, closed community environment of like-minded creatives. That's what this is. And like I said, it's free to join. Send an email, convobydesign@outlook.com. Subject line is Shelter Republic. It's that simple. And like I said, it's free to join. See you there.
I think that not only general contractors, I think also what's happening is that clients now have access to so much more information that I mean, you have clients of every type, right? But there are the clients that come to a meeting with a list of the 10 different products that they can or think they can use for a certain application.
Plus their Pinterest page.
Or AI. What is a good cladding material for south facing? And they come to you with a list of things. So for us and architects, or at least for me, what that has meant is that I find myself trying to investigate more and more as to what is up there so that I am preparing mentally for the meeting I know I'm going to have with this person that is going to come to the meeting with a list of options. And that's where I rely heavily on vendors and showrooms, because I need to be asking questions about, hey, I'm planning on using this material. What else should I be thinking of? Attachment methods, waterproofing. And then I need to talk to the showroom. Hey, I have a client that he's not going to be satisfied with looking at a photograph. I need to see that door installation more or less exactly how it's going to be. So the amount of information that people has access to has led to, you're right, Anthony, that we in our drawings are being forced to put a lot more information, again, trying to bridge or to educate our clients that out of the 10 materials that AI told them they could use, only one or two work, but to be able that the other 8 doesn't work is based on us having to do a lot of research and have come up with answers for them.
Has it ever occurred to you to tell the client, now that you've done all the work, you don't need me.
Exactly.
Go ahead and build your own project.
You should be looking for a draftsperson, not an architect.
Right.
We find that there are so many products out there, and I think that whenever there's these events, like what happened with the fires, there's a ton of companies kind of coming out of the woodwork to flood the market with this is going to be fireproof, and it's just you're inundated with it. And I think that when it's very easy for clients for sure, for even within our industry, for people to be like, oh, that's new, that's cool, let's talk about that, which can lead to some really great finds, but it can also open the door to some products that just don't have the testing, or they don't have a reputable company behind them. And I think that that's a problem when we are taking responsibility for these projects, and not just for them to be built, but for them to last for generations. Putting in product that is just the newest, flashiest thing that doesn't have a reputable company behind it, that we know that the warranty's there, we know that the support is there, we know that all of the certifications are there. That's the stuff that really matters to me. I want to make sure that when I'm telling a client to spend a significant amount of money on a product, that they're not going to regret it in a couple of years.
That's important to us also.
Totally.
Yeah.
We feel like if we're supplying something, we got to stand behind it. And we absolutely don't just sell anything.
Yeah.
It gets scary with some of the stuff that is presented to us.
Yep.
And you look at the history, the testing, and the liability.
But there's a lot of, and I don't mean this to demean different avenues of people finding design, but there's a lot of stuff that gets brought to us as, hey, did you check this out? Have you heard of this? And sometimes no, actually, you know what, I haven't, but that's great. And sometimes yeah, you know what, let's look at where that's coming from.
Here's the rub, and here's the problem, and I totally get that. I'll give you an example. So I'm a woodworker, and I'm a wood turner, and I work in epoxy. Have you seen the videos on social media where you'll have somebody putting a quick form together, and then it's a table, and then they pour in these buckets and buckets of epoxy over cotton to make a cloud, and then they show this finished table. It's like 18 inches tall and 6 feet long. And well, first of all, the epoxy at that rate would take probably 3 years to cure. The cotton would never still stand up, and it would weigh 3,000 pounds. So there's no way you can have a product like that. But if you look online, on social media, there's no shortage of people portraying what a product is and what it does, and look at this, here's what you can do with it. How do you navigate that? And I guess my question is how, and this is open to the table, how do you find the time to do the research and learn about products? How do you vet new products that come to you, and how do you educate showrooms and yards about what the product is so that they can then teach them with the same level of education that you have? How does this partnership work best?
I think that what we find is that oftentimes, and more so as the years go on, it feels like we end up doing a lot of R&D for our projects, whereas historically I think that we would have relied on the manufacturers to do a lot of that, and there's quite a few manufacturers that still do that. But I'm finding that we're doing these mock-ups with these products, and then, hey, let's let it sit out there. Let's see what happens over the next 6 months. We're doing a project right now where we're essentially mocking up the entire house on a 15 by 10 pump house. So it's going to be this sort of like a mini replica of a significantly larger house. But we're doing that to flesh out some details, but also just to see, while it's going to take 3 years for this house to be built, how do the products perform? And some of the products are incredibly reputable, and some of them are a little bit more. Experimental.
Well put. That was very PC.
But I think that for us, I would say that we always try to be innovative and experimental with our work. But I think that most of what our work is sort of rooted in traditional building practices, and we're very, very diligent on material. I had a mentor way back when tell me that the material should shine. You shouldn't take a aluminum panel and cover it with wood veneer. If it's wood, it should be wood. And unfortunately, that's great, and I think that drove a significant portion of my career. But there are so many products out there that are composites, right? That we were talking about earlier. There's these incredible materials that are not truly what they are. It's composites that look like wood, that are way more durable than wood, that don't require the amount of maintenance as wood. And what we find is that sometimes we're leaning into those. Sometimes we're finding porcelains that look like stone that may be more durable because the client wants marble, and those sorts of things. But what we are doing is really making sure that we are applying those materials in a way that is the way that it would be built. If we're doing stone, it might be a stone veneer. We may not be getting 20-inch deep blocks of stone. It might be a stone veneer, but we don't visually. It's not shown as a veneer. We are wrapping things. We're taking things to inside corners. So when you look at it, it's like, yeah, if that was truly stone, I don't think it is, but if it was, that is how it would be built. And kind of fooling the eye. That's my way of being able to sleep at night, knowing that I have put a veneer on something that's not,
I think with the growing technology and materials, that thinking that trend might start to fade. I mean, the trend of authenticity and real materials. I think back to fashion. In the older days, it was important that the suit was 100% wool, or your tie is 100% silk. And nowadays, fashion is driven by all kinds of poly blends, stretch materials, rubber, latex, things that old school fashion designers would not even consider. Those options today in architecture are fantastic to see. Yeah, I agree about this fake stone trying to look like real stone, but there's so many other kind of materials, and this gets back to fire resistance. There are things that just a natural material like wood or concrete may not do as well as some of these kind of combinations. But I want to get back to your question, Josh. How do we find the time to research all this? It's almost like, how can you not, because of the risk of doing something wrong? Something I think you probably have to think about, and I do, is scale, in the sense that if you do a custom house, you can be a little bit more experimental. You could try some things and take a few risks. We've done production housing, where a house is multiplied 300 times. If you get one material spec wrong, or something new comes up, more like, that's a pretty interesting profile, we should try that, and it doesn't work, you're not just getting a call from an angry client, you're getting a class action lawsuit. And that's where we, in those situations, go back to best practices. The question I want to throw out, just jumping back, you're saying, I think you're suggesting that we may be at another tipping point in our industry because of all these things, from AI to fires. And the last time we had one, and I agree, was with Veterans Coming Home, which launched a lot of the impactful mid-century architecture. The interesting thing is, I haven't seen anything impactful come out of all these discussions we're having. The reference to mid-century, obviously there was the case study program. There are multiple case study programs going on right now from groups of architects. They're calling them Case Study 2.0 or all the different names. have any of them been built, any of them being permitted, is anyone doing any of them? They're just ideas, and I'm still waiting to see how all these new things, and I agree we're at a tipping point, but what's come out of this tipping point?
Can I challenge you on that for a second?
Sure.
And I'll give you I don't know if it's a perfect example. I'll give you an example, and you can rip it to shreds like I know
tell
you
you
will,
if it's
because
perfect.
I know that. That is why I value our relationship, Anthony. The passive house. So everyone saw that one gray house that was still up in the Palisades, right? Everyone saw, and then everyone started talking about passive homes. You don't see everyone building passive homes, but instead what you see is them taking certain ideas, certain kernels, I'll give you an example. I was at CEDIA in September of last year, and I was talking to companies that are looking at ways of using technology, using AI, using actuators, using certain things. So here's the example. A home is Wi-Fi enabled and it's smart enough and it's connected to the weather service. When a fire breaks out, it calculates direction of the wind, force of the wind, where the fire is, in which direction, and if it's a mile to a mile and a half to 2 miles away from the home, downwind, it automatically closes the eaves. Is it a perfect solution? No. I don't think there is any such thing as a perfect solution, but it is a thing, and that particular thing came out of the passive house design. So does that fit as an evolving thought process into a case study?
I think it does, in the sense that that kind of token of idea is pushing something larger, which is kinetic architecture. And I guess the fantasy is, if this computer can figure out that a fire is coming, it'd be great if this house could pick itself up and move down the block and get out of the way. Yeah. But in the sense of it being a kind of a token idea, so it drops down metal shades, or it's already soaking the roof with water. I think the idea's got to be bigger than that, because the fire is still coming and it's still going to wipe out 10,000 homes.
Yeah.
Is it a gimmick, I guess, is my question.
Yes, and I think that that those are very splashy ideas, right? But we have things that have been around for a long time that are there to help harden to help protect your house, right? The idea of fire sprinklers has been around for a really long time. And that's not the perfect solution, but it is something that you should be putting into a home, right? And the amount of projects I see trying to avoid having to put in fire sprinklers is wild. The fact that people are seeing that as a burden, I don't know if people are going to lean into additional expense and complications for their house when there already are things available that people, not as a whole, but there are developers and even clients are like, yeah, can we classify this as a remodel so I don't have to do fire sprinklers? Which is wild. Are those, you just can't expect that people are gonna latch on to things that make their build more difficult. I feel like it's more that we need to find ways to bring durability and think about. The case study is a good example of this. Is an opportunity. The Palisades, as you had mentioned, is an opportunity for us to change the way that we're building, to change the science of how we build the materials, and it really needs to be kind of across the board. And I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing a lot of the stuff that's being built right now doesn't look any different or look like it's going to perform any different than it did before the fires. I think that the case study is a brilliant concept, and really the idea of making your home rebuild a little bit more accessible is phenomenal. I'd like to see that we use this as an opportunity to change how, as professionals, we are going about designing, constructing homes.
Yeah,
I was just going to make a comment or a question. Those burn areas are being built now. There's a lot of activity that it's being built now. And there's going to be a lot coming online in just the next few weeks and few months and so forth. And what is going to be built now that could resist that caliber of fire in the future? I gotta think it's a very small percentage that could withstand.
I just don't think that there was such a rush to rebuild. I mean, there are people. I'm seeing people, patting themselves on the back for how quickly they were able to put up a house and how they were the first ones in. But I feel like we, as a profession, didn't, as an entire, industry, all of us, here included, didn't give enough time to think about what really needs to be done and discuss it and ultimately implement it as a standard. We are still running with homes that are 10 feet away from each other. We're the density, like, that's going to make the fires leapfrog as we saw a year ago. There's so much that goes into it that needs to be studied, and I don't think that we've done that.
I've talked with developers they're building as fast as they can build right now.
Yeah.
And they will sell to somebody that is then going to build their dream home. So some of the quality that's going up right now, it's just being slapped together.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean when they're going to buy it and then build their dream home?
There's a demand for housing. These people want to live in that area.
Yeah.
And they know what they want to build is going to take time. They want to build the dream house, but they don't really know what the dream is, and they're figuring it out. However, they need a place to live, and so they're just going to purchase whatever's available and then build.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Part of what's
I'm seeing the opposite.
That
I'm seeing clients that have the opportunity. I'm seeing clients that have the opportunity to rebuild that are saying, "Nah, let's talk in 3 years. I don't want to be anywhere near there. I don't want to be surrounded by construction. I don't want that." So it's interesting to hear that you're hearing the opposite of people saying, "Get me in there right away."
I'm also hearing what you're hearing.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it all over the board.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing, is that there's everybody's circumstances are wildly different, and there's all of these things can be true. But I will say that when it comes to how we build, and I think that thinking of this as not just specifically in these neighborhoods in Altadena being a very important one here, but just how we build into our environment, knowing that there's these catastrophes that can happen. It feels like we're doing the same thing. It feels like we're building the way that we always have, and maybe changing a couple of details, maybe getting rid of some natural wood and putting in some composites. But
yeah, I think the fact is that regulations for builds in high risk fire zones have been there for a long time already. I think it comes down to who really has the means to build a concrete, aluminum, and whatnot home. There's too many considerations when talking about rebuilding a community. Yes, we got a lot of phone calls from clients who lost their homes at that time, and everyone wants to rush and get their drawings first in line because the city is going to be so busy. But I think that approach, and you touched on that, Ben, of let's do it as quickly as we can, has not been all that great, because number one, rules have changed. The cities, they came up with some rules as to what would be allowed. This happened a month or so after the fires, and they said, okay, you can do up to 110% and blah blah blah. They set some set of rules. Then, because of, I guess, feedback, they changed the rules to allow certain other things. And then 2 months later, another mandate came out with making it even or giving, allowing the homeowners who lost their house to do something more. So if you got your house permitted with the first set of rules, you probably missed out on an opportunity of a larger home, or whatnot. Now, yes, if you are a homeowner, I hear different thoughts. Okay, well, do I want to live in a neighborhood that is going to be under construction for the next 5 years? Do I want to live in a neighborhood where I am the first house and the other 20 houses around are just empty lots? So there's a lot of different considerations. Now you talked about the developers. Well, yeah, a developer buys, and I heard that from many different sources that yes, this company purchased 10, 15, 20 lots, and they are building the exact same house 20 times. Some property owners may not want to live in a community where all the houses look the same. That is changing the character of the neighborhood. So it's not as easy to say, oh yeah, let's build as fast as I can, because do I want to live in that community that it doesn't look anymore like the way it used to look? Because how all the houses are same design with different color or different finish.
I think one of the reasons to maybe slow down in this reconstruction is to look at a new social agenda. We're basically, as Ben said, we're kind of rebuilding the same way. We're building single-family residences in the same lots when Southern California is plagued with having not enough housing. And there's a housing shortage all over the place. Why aren't people looking at different density rules? Why isn't multifamily one of the approaches to rebuilding? Why are we just plopping down the same houses, single family, with the same lots? I mean, these are pretty larger topics, but that would be a reason to slow down and rethink what the social agenda is.
I'm actually curious for you as to, obviously, like the dynamics. You're constantly having to spin many different plates, from different regulations that are coming to clients' awareness of the different materials. Like, how has that changed your design? Maybe not the design process, but like, have you been seeing like an evolution of like relationships, whether it's with like the contractors or with the homeowner? Like, are you seeing more frictionful conversations happening, or more directive conversations, collaborative? Like, there's so many different things coming into account with this. So I was just curious if you guys have had to evolve the practice
Certainly
at all.
more collaborative.
Okay.
That we are bringing in our vendors and suppliers as part of the design team and bringing them in earlier on. In the sense that maybe in the past we'd come up with an idea and say, now how do we do it, and what materials are we using, what details are we using? Maybe today we'll discover a material and have that material drive the design rather than the other way around, because it's something that we're fascinated with and we think it's the perfect use and application.
Yeah, I think that I sometimes tell this to my client that coming up with a floor plan is not that difficult. I mean, anyone with 4 fingers of forehead can draw a floor plan, but coordinating a set of drawings these days between the structural, the civil, the audio video, the low voltage, the lighting. I mean, there are so many different professionals, and then add to that all the different materials and how they get installed. It requires a lot more than knowing how to lay out a floor plan to put together a comprehensive set of construction documents. And that's where, to me, that coordination, it doesn't happen with me as an architect drawing something and then, hey, you go build it and figure out, because it probably won't work, right? So it all happens during schematic design, during design development, all these conversations with vendors, with the different consultants, figuring out mechanical systems, audio video systems, how, all that has to happen early on in the process. So yeah, that's what we're seeing. we get more involved
Mm-hmm.
or get more people involved in the design process much earlier than before. And we do rely a lot on showrooms and vendors. He was asking earlier how we find time to research.
Yeah.
Honestly, honestly, there are certain materials that we know work, and we tend to stay with them. And when it comes to new material, we rely on the sources that we have been using to get these more traditional materials. So if I'm working with a company that sells this specific product and have been working with them for years, and then next thing I know, I get a phone call, hey Luis, we have this new composite that has these other options. I'm always trying to figure out what's the best composite that allows me to do miter corners without having to add a horrendous trim in all corners. So I'm always, if I hear of a new material from a vendor or from a consultant that I trust that I've been working with, it is more likely that I will listen and I will want to spend the time researching it. Otherwise, is if I get an email or out of the blue someone calls me up to offer something, chances are I will not even pick up the phone.
In your product research and development, how often do you reach out to architects for their feedback? I know some companies do. I know a lot of window companies that do that and ask us, what are you looking for? What do you think the future is? But I'm surprised a lot of other companies don't. And I look at their catalogs and I'm like, who would specify this profile? No one's done this in 20 years.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that company is freshening up their inventory and using, just sort of following up with their clients, their architects, to figure out what's next.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that James Hardie is doing now actively, is looking at inspiration from the design community as to what are applications that are being sought after. Certainly for composites tends to be a category that can be a little dividing at times, if you will, and a lot of it has to do with what does the actual product look like. So we have to be very in tune with what are the expectations of the product, from what is the visual aesthetic you're looking for, what is the sound of the product when you're touching, when something drops on it, what does it sound like? Even when you're talking about things like composite decking, what is the foot feel of it? What is the flex characteristic of the board? Or even taking a look at, I think composites have got a reputation of kind of getting that repeating pattern in it, or you see a couple different boards, and even within the same board, sections of it look the exact same. So for us, we heavily look at how do we implement the right types of technology and then validate that with the community to say, hey, how can we make sure that these things really look as best as possible? And so that's something that we really strive for a lot, and we're doing it even more actively now. I think certainly with our brands also coming together, it gives us an opportunity that we need those inputs on different aspects, because we now have something where we can actually blend different types of material together, where previously, Hardie was fiber cement, but now we have cellular PVC for trim. How can those two things come together? And then you look at decking as well. We're bringing in other materials like aluminum, for our aluminum framing systems, so that ultimately it helps to complement each other throughout that whole stage. But a lot of that comes from what are the challenges that the design world is coming upon, that are those frustrations that we might be able to take our material science knowledge and then adapt it to the projects that you're working on. So something we work on quite a bit.
When it comes to reaching out to architectural firms or designers, do you guys have a program, or how do you choose which companies you offer a launch and learn? Because that's how a lot of times when a company wants to introduce a project, they approach us and say, hey, we have this product, we have these advantages, and if it sounds remotely interesting, I may say, all right, let's organize somewhere. So I haven't received one.
Okay, well, I'll give you my card.
We had this conversation over dinner recently of how do the architects and the products, and what does that relationship look like, and how do we have access to the information? Because these guys, I mean, they live that product, right? That's all they talk about. That is what they do all day long, right? And they are one of hundreds of products that we as architects have to think about. So how do they, one, get our attention, two, kind of show their merit, how do they show us great we exist, but also this is why we should, how do they get us that information? And then once we have that relationship, like how as we're going through our designing and specifications, how easy is it for us to access that information and to kind of get what we need from them, who they've got so much knowledge of every intricate detail. They've already solved most of these things. How easy is it for us to access that? Because we don't know what we don't know, right?
Right.
So it's interesting that you guys are talking about that.
Yeah, no, it's certainly I'll make sure you have my number after this. We definitely will talk and we'll get in there. For us, there's so many different ways for us to connect. So one, we've got certainly things like CEU, certainly from the like that. I'm going to just talk quickly on like this fire resiliency CEU that we just came out with. Like, to what you guys are talking about, like the expert level of like our engineering teams that are building the products, right? They do all kinds of testing. So we thought, well, let's just take exactly what they're going to do, and so we'll actually educate people on here are all the different types of fire tests. This is actually how these things perform. Certainly breaking down things such as like what are your different fire ratings? What does actually a fire rating mean, or how does it perform? Is actually, I would say, been one of the most watched videos that we've come out with recently, from homeowners to even the A&D community contractors understanding it more. But to circle back on your original question, we're constantly trying to certainly get out there and do as much education as possible, whether it's at regional shows, national shows, going in to the individual firms and doing that. Definitely not a perfect recipe by any means, but we're definitely trying to do more and more of that as much as possible. Even leveraging some third-party platforms that allow us to be able to at least present it virtually, because there's so many different ways to connect, and we know that your time is certainly valuable, and so we want to make it as accessible as possible for you guys.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I do in our company, I do a lot of the detailing.
Okay.
Not only I do the designs, the design concept and all that. I love sitting down doing CD and just drawing details. Like, I want to create these detail 3 to 1, and I have to go through to the web page. Hey, let's see what type of clip do this company offer to maybe this condition. Then I download the profile and then I incorporate. So it is a time-consuming exercise. Most recently, I got into the habit of saying, hey, ChatGPT, what would be the best applicable or the best attachment method for this type of material? And then I've been able to save some time on drafting by or finding the right type of hardware.
Absolutely.
So there has to be an even more efficient way to get the information. Like,
it's interesting because the detailing is such an important thing, right? It's something that we spend so much of our time, and that matters. But I'm going to say that we're doing things the same way, which maybe a stretch, but let's just say that we're detailing, right? We are looking for a piece. We're saying, but how do I do this? I think that what's really interesting about working with some of these other manufacturers is, they can very easily say, well, this is how you would pull that off. But sometimes the conversation is more fun from a design and implementation standpoint to say, okay, look, I want to use your product, right? Let's talk about not just how it goes together, but like what are the different conditions that I don't know. I don't know what to ask. But these guys can say, hey, you know what? We've got something really cool that we think could work for this design. Check this out. And they are not necessarily creating those details, although they typically have some pretty phenomenal libraries, but they are giving us insight into different applications of their products that we would never think about doing. And that's what I find is really, really valuable. So that's the information I love, and obviously it's really time consuming, but to be able to sit down with somebody that truly loves the product and say, okay, well let's figure this out together is really cool.
Yeah, like we've I want to say just this year, recently actually, we just redid about 100 different details for siding from the Hardie side of our portfolio, and then as we've grown in this segment, we have an inside specification team as well. So it's something where you can send a set of plans to us, and we'll take a look and give the details back and say, hey, this is actually what product you could use for this if you want to, whether that was the original request or not. But as well, like to your point of like trying to figure it out, that's actually that's why I love working in the luxury residential world, and certainly in the commercial world, is figuring out applications that we wouldn't have necessarily thought of. And we have a whole applications team behind us that those guys totally nerd out over those types of applications of how can we do this? Like, okay, let's walk through this. We had an under deck heating system that they wanted to put our boards on top of. So we had to go and think through that. PVC is one of the great things about PVC is if you heat it up, you can bend it for things. But if you do that for an under deck heating system, how do you make sure that it does that, right? So it starts a conversation, but that's where we love jumping into those types of things and trying to figure that out alongside you guys, because those again are the unique applications where if we think about, well, what are most people doing? They're typically putting on a deck on the back of the home, but what are the constraints or the limitations that or the abilities that the product needs to actually be able to do because you're facing new situations.
Yeah. And we find that, going back to my earlier comment about never letting it be known that the product is not the real thing, right? Like that a composite decking board is not a real piece of lumber, as one example. But making sure that that there are sufficient ways to do that, so you're not seeing end grain that doesn't exist. So having not just the product but the applications and also associated hardware components or trim pieces that are true to traditional building methods, I think is something that we're always looking for.
Anthony, since we were talking about different ways that you all are trying to find out about new products, like since you do quite a bit of commercial work as well, do you guys have a different process to find materials for commercial projects versus residential?
No, I think it's just all part of general research and development.
Okay.
We're relying on all of us at the office to read up on articles on websites. We invite vendors and suppliers to come by the office, make presentations. The lunch and learn format is still one that is successful. There's nothing wrong with a free meal.
Of course.
AI has helped a lot in the research. I don't think there's much of a difference between commercial, residential, religious. I mean, we're just sort of studying everything. I am surprised though that sometimes we have suppliers and vendors that still come to the office hoping to update our physical library and binder.
Interesting.
That is something we don't. Someone who's thinking that way, we just think is so archaic that it's a philosophy from the supplier and vendor that we're just not. It's actually kind of a joke in the office when someone wants to do that.
Elaborate a bit more on that. So when you're saying no more library, like Why is that such an archaic way of thinking of it?
Well, I thought of it recently because Restoration Hardware sends out their phone book size catalog seasonally, and they talk about being an environmentally conscious company, and these.
It's massive.
They're massive, they're heavy, they're pages and pages of a lot of times this kind of same look, and we laugh because if there is something of theirs that we're researching, it's easy enough to find on a website that has search functions, that has filters, that it's easier to find that than having to always receive seasonally these giant catalogs.
I agree with you completely. Like the library is we still keep a library, but in a very different format. Ours is more of like a showroom. It's like a mini Ganal lumber. It's how kind of like we want to be able to pull the piece and be like, oh yeah, cool.
The material library.
But I wonder if the sort of Restoration Hardware model is more based on it as a marketing tool than here's a resource for you. I think that the fact that they mail them to everybody, it's sort of a saturation of the market where people think of Restoration Hardware when they think of interior design and interior furnishings.
I think
at
you're right.
that level.
It's probably a kind of campaign strategy, but it probably, or at least in my mind, it backfires.
But I bet you that book doesn't exist in most architecture firms or even interior design firms, even though they may purchase from them.
I don't think it's we get inundated with all the brochures, right?
Yeah.
And it's on the website. Now, a lot of the products that we sell, they want to see that sample. They want to see that window or that door or that deck sample. Mm-hmm. They want to see the color and the texture, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to get off a website. So the samples are good, but that's not a brochure.
Yeah. The samples, the sort of showroom element is really helpful. People want to come and test them. They want to, they can look through an MTech website or a catalog, fine, but they want to come and they want to touch it.
They want to feel. They want to feel the action.
They want to feel the action.
Yeah.
They want, and that's really important. That's really important. I think that for all the materials, we try to implement a lot of things into our office wherever possible. If it's something that we're going to be using and specifying quite a bit, right? Our favorite window systems and door systems are part of our office. But with so many products out there, just having a brochure doesn't really do much. But how do you sort of educate people? I don't know.
One of the things that my younger staff uses for research is YouTube. Mm-hmm. Whereas in my day, I would read an article or read a feature, a study technical report, but I'm actually reading, whether it's a physical report or online. I'm surprised that a lot of people look at YouTube for their research. And it could be a video made and created by the vendor. Mm-hmm. It could be made by the supplier, or maybe it's a subcontractor giving a kind of op-ed about a product, but a lot is learned, and I was surprised that has become such a popular use. I don't know your office if people use YouTube.
Absolutely.
But I was surprised.
Absolutely, it's so much. I feel like it's so much more helpful to watch a product be installed than to read an instruction manual.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think that those YouTube things, like I don't need a YouTube video that talks about the certifications and talks about the merits of the product, but those installation ones, here's the applications, here's that detail in a real life situation is really great.
While the contractor's also critiquing and reviewing the product
totally,
as they're installing, giving their opinion.
Yeah.
Is that something that you do much?
So on the decking side, so we've done a lot of YouTube videos we take some of our best contractors in the country, and they will literally walk through exactly what are some of the limitations of the board, what's been their experience for it, things from the decking, the framing, the railing. Certainly on the Hardie side as well, we're investing in those videos too from an installation perspective, because I think I agree with you. Like I think about how even myself, I want to interpret information and learn it. Like I'm more apt to watch a video for it to walk me through and understand it versus reading a manual necessarily. So I think there's definitely an evolution of communication, and I also do find it much more engaging, like you were talking about. And part of why I think videos are also really critically important too is there's things that you can do with products like heat bending, for instance. It's really hard to explain how to do that in writing. So showing it in a video to show exactly like how that actually happens, it's a far easier way to communicate that too. So for unique applications, it's even more powerful for that.
Yeah, I think the dramatic effects that you can get in the video make it more memorable in the sense that I could read about fire resistance of a product, but to see a video of the product having fire blasted on it and some kind of time clock, that just tells me the story so much more effectively.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go.
I was going to say, in terms of, you said you use the word memorable. I personally learn better. I'm more of a show me than a tell me. So I think that's something that I don't know if I'm probably not alone in that, but having it being shown is pretty helpful.
I think time really does fly when you're having fun. Let me end it with this. I want to go back around. We're going to start on this side now, and we're going to go the other way. What is going to be? I'm asking you to get your crystal ball out. What is going to be the next and most impactful thing that comes? What's the next domino in this architectural evolution as we've been talking about it, as things change? And it could be that AI is taking a larger role in product specification. It could be any number of things that you see as the biggest drivers for change. Let's call it in the next 18 months to 3 years, because I don't want to get too far out, but that seems to be a reasonable window. Same for you two, as it affects you, as it affects the showroom and the lumberyard, as it affects you and the products and the case studies and the data sets that you're evaluating. I'm curious how things are going to change for you in the next 18 months to 3 years.
I think that what we're seeing as being the quickest changing thing that we've experienced in the last 2 years is really coming down to our visualizations, and the process of how we tell the story visually of our products or projects during the initial design phases. I think that the technology is really pretty incredible for that right now. So I think that is going to continue to be something that we are seeing changing the way that we do business, the way that we do design in the next couple of years. I think that the building sciences takes a lot longer to change. You need a lot more testing. You need a lot. It's not as it just requires a little bit longer process.
I think technology is clearly something, and I know AI is being talked about a lot, and that's just a subset of the umbrella of technology. But what I think is going to drastically change more is the role of the architect. We were joking earlier about when doing a house for a husband and wife, we become marriage counselors, or in working with a family who has lost everything in a fire, you've become a kind of emotional support professional or therapist. I think the role of the architect is shifting and happily expanding into many other things. We are not just designers. We've become civic leaders, we've become community engagement experts. We're rethinking how entire communities and towns can be rebuilt. Josh once used the word futurist, and we're that too. We're looking at social trends and social agendas and how we can advance those through our skills in creativity, design thinking, problem solving. So my guess is that our role of being an architect is going to continue to evolve into broader and broader fields.
Yeah, I think the challenge that I see, or not the challenge, the future of the profession is, in my case at least, or I think for all architects, is how we use the AI and those technologies to make the process of creating a beautiful and functional architectural piece in a more efficient way. There's so much information out there being passed on to homeowners, to contractors, to everyone, that it gives the impression that number one, that there are a lot of different options when it comes to resolving your house in a very quick period of time. They see a TV show and they think a building can be built in 6 months, and they ask me why I can't do the same. So for us, or for me, more how we can produce our comprehensive set of drawings in a much more efficient way using the technology that is available. We see already how AI, for instance, as far as renderings, I don't know what people that makes a living out of renderings are going to continue existing because these days you can just tell AI to produce a photorealistic rendering of these three basic 3D model without altering your building in any way, and you will get something like very good in a very short time.
It's still going to be altered. But
sometimes there's alterations that you have to be careful. But yes, how can we use that technology to do our work in a more efficient way?
Yeah. Well, so looking out into the future from a product standpoint, for us, it's going to be the gentleman in this room, the marketplace, that's going to affect us. What the demand is and what the supply is, right? That's going to help us decide, do we want to invest and have that product on the ground? And then really for us in our position where we are is we're trying to help that builder be more profitable. So speed, it's always a speed, fast. However we can do that, that's what we'll continue to focus on and help our customer, the builder, with their customer make decisions with the showroom or cost or how quick we can respond to the need. So we'll try and do that. So I'm just kind of saying the basics for our position, because as far as investing in new products, we get to just kind of sit back and go, okay, where do we want to spend the money?
yeah.
I would say from a manufacturer perspective, it's because of the access to information, it's requiring us to be even more agile. We have to have the information ready for you all when you need it and as accessible as possible. So I think for us, I think there's going to be, I don't know what that answer is yet, kind of looking at a crystal ball in the future, but I know it's going to challenge us to look at that in particular, but then also furthermore, looking at just materials and again, the access of what we have access now with like really kind of key buckets of PVC, fiber cement, aluminum, right? There's going to be, I know there's going to be an evolution of product lines that will then allow us to even further address like what the marketplace is demanding from a resiliency perspective, and how do we tie those things together to be better partners, offer those solutions that you all can certainly rely on, homeowners, what they're going to desire. So I can't really share what we're coming out with, but I think that's kind of the exciting thing about being on the manufacturing side, is that it allows us to continue to evolve, and we'll continue investing in those.
It's interesting what we said about and you also talk about the speed. Like, if we could get the visualization and get the details and get the construction drawings done instantly, if you didn't have to wait for that, how long do you think, as an architect, it would take you to get a house from initial, okay, start thinking about it, to it's ready to be built?
I think it's all communication between, well, how good you are at listening to your client needs,
Yeah.
and how good they are in giving you feedback on what you produce.
Yeah.
And that part is difficult to reduce in time.
Sure.
We can reduce the production time,
Yeah.
but when it comes to coming up with a design, starts in our case with a lot of questions, a lot of listening, trusting that our clients are sufficiently open to pass on everything they have in mind to us, and then thinking that we have the ability to extract all the important matter from what they say, put it together in a format that is comprehensive to them, present to them, and so forth. So that's still, I don't think there's a good way to that interaction with your client to get to the essence, to what they want.
Yeah.
I don't know that can be reduced.
What an artist.
Thank you so much, Barrett, Jay, Anthony, Ben, Luis. What an incredible conversation. Thank you for taking the time to come out and share your thoughts. Thank you to Ganal Lumber for hosting us. And thank you to TimberTech and James Hardie for supporting this. Thank you to my incredible partner sponsors, Pacific Sales, Kitchen and Home, TimberTech, Best Buy, the Best Buy Company, and Shelter Republic for your continued support. Their sponsorship of Convo by Design allows me to seek out sublime design stories from beyond the work itself and showcase unique personalities, chasing new ideas, and changing the way we think about design and architecture, and present it to you. So please give them an opportunity on your next project. Thank you for listening and sharing this journey of ours. 2026 marks 13 years of constant publication of the podcast, with well over 700 interviews and conversations, and more downloads and streams every year. And I'm so appreciative. Please keep those guest suggestions coming, as well as thoughts about where you would like to see the show record live. Convo by Design at Outlook.com, and on Instagram, Convo by Design with an X. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, be well, stay focused, and driven so you can rise above the chaos.